Okay, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen, the
Good morning.
moderator, the honorable audience, and the ELTLT committee. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to present our findings of the topic, translation methods of songs and poems with special reference to I Prosidius Bayangan and Demi Lovato's Let It Go. I am Taranina Permatasari.
And I am Paniarianti Santoso from Universitas Sanata Dharma.
First of all, we need to know what translation is. Many people would say that translation is the action of delivering the meaning of a text into another language, the exact way that the author intended. Some people would say that it is simple, but the others would say otherwise. Translation covers many objects such as reports, news articles, and also literary text. In translating, the translator should convey the same meaning that the original author intended. Maintaining the original meaning of the source text is quite a difficult task because each language has its own culture and characteristics. This study is going to analyze the methods applied by the translator in maintaining the original meaning.
In conducting the researchers used the theory of translation method by Peter Newmark. Newmark proposes 8 translation methods. The first one is word-for-word translation. This is often demonstrated as interlinear translation with the target text language immediately below the source language. The source language word order is preserved and the words translated signify the most common meanings out of context. The second one is literal translation. The grammatical structures of the source language are transformed to the closest target language equivalence, but the words are translated singly, individually, without really considering the content. The third one is faithful translation. A faithful translation attempts to reproduce the precise contextual meaning of the original within the constraints of the target text language grammatical structures. It means that in faithful translation, the translator translates the meaning from the source language to convey its original meaning. The fourth one is semantic translation. Semantic translation translates less significant cultural words by culturally neutral terms or practical terms and not by the cultural equivalence.
The next one is adaptation translation. This is the freest form of translation. Adaptation is used mainly for plays like comedies and poetry, and the source language culture converted to the target language culture, and the text is rewritten. The translator translates the cultural elements of the source language, which is acceptable to the cultural elements of the target language. And the next one is free translation. Free translation is a part of in the target language emphasis, which reproduces the matter without the manner or the content without the form of the original. And then idiomatic translation. Idiomatic translation reproduces the message of the original but tend to distort the nuances of the meaning by preferring colloquialism and idioms where these do not exist in the original. And then the last one is communicative translation, which attempts to create the exact contextual interpretation of the original so that both the content and the language are comprehensible and also acceptable to the readers from both language backgrounds.
This study is applying a qualitative research method as the data don't really build with numbers. To conduct this study, there are 4 steps done by the researchers. The first one is choosing the data. The researchers chose the poem because Ali Prosidi was one of the most famous poets in Indonesia. And the song is chosen because it has won several awards, such as the first song from Disney to reach the top 10 in Billboard since 1995. And somebody is reading the data and the theory of translation methods. As the researchers, we need to have a deep understanding about the objects and the methods so that we can analyze the appropriate methods used by the translator.
The next step is analyzing the chosen data and to find the methods appropriate for the translation. And the last step after that is to make a conclusion. This is the chart of the result of the analysis. The result shows that adaptation method reached 10%, faithful reached 30%, free reached 40%, and communicative reached 20%. The presentation of the analysis will be elaborated as follows. We will go to the poem analysis first. I proceed this bayangan. The first one is faithful translation. We can see that the datum applied faithful translation method since the contextual meaning of the original version is reproduced precisely in the translated version within the constraint of the grammatical structures of the target language. Telah habis means already empty and it is translated into used up, and tak terucapkan which is translated into unspoken. Together combined, the author wants to say that the character is already running out of words, yet they never really spoke anything. We can see that with applying a faithful translation method, the translator also succeeds in conveying the same meaning that the author wants to deliver. The next one is adaptation translation. The datum fits the characteristic of adaptation, where the text is being rewritten but still creates an acceptable translation. The translator did not really translate rindu into longing or yearning, but he chose to paraphrase rindu into desire instead. Rindu, according to the Kamus Besar Bahasa Indonesia or KBBI, means sangat ingin dan berharap benar akan sesuatu. A strong desire, a strong urge to something. Desire in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary means to long or hope for. There's another paraphrase in this line, berupa, which is translated into shaping by the translator. Berupa, according to the KBBI, means yang berbentuk sebagai, or in English, in the form of something. In the translated version, it is paraphrased into shaping, which according to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary means to adapt in shape so as to fit neatly and closely. It can be concluded that in the original version, I Prosody wants to say that the longing, feeling, or desire is the truth of what the character feels. But in the translated version, this desire is shaping into another form, which is truth. The desire still becomes the truth. The translator paraphrased the meaning of this line, and that is the reason why it can be defined as adaptation translation method. And then free translation. The datum fits the characteristic of a free translation methods from this example. Pada langit, which is translated into in the air. Langit, according to the KBBI, means ruang luas yang terbentang di atas bumi, tempat beradanya bulan, bintang, matahari, dan planet yang lain. Or in English, it means sky. Air, according to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, means the mixture of invisible, odorless, tasteless gases, such as nitrogen and oxygen, that surrounds the earth. Pada langit, awan, kemanapun aku berpaling. This line refers to the previous line of the poem that mentioned the character is always looking at the particular figure in every object, as well as in the sky, wherever he or she looks at. When langit is translated into air in this context, it can create an acceptable translation because according to the scienceworld.com, as humans, we are constantly surrounded by lots and tiny invisible air particles. If we try to connect the characteristic of air with what this slide is trying to tell us, the translated version in the air, on the clouds, wherever I look, is also trying to tell us that this character is like surrounded by the image of this particular figure, like the way air surrounds humans.
Now we move to the song analysis.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Tarani and Fanny, you only have 1 minute left. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Free translation. The phrase "A Kingdom of Isolation" and "It Looks Like I'm the Queen" is translated into "Aku bagaikan ratu di kerajaan terasing." The word isolation is translated into terasing. According to Oxford Dictionary, isolation as a noun is defined as the state of being separated. Meanwhile, according to the Kamus Besar Bahasa Indonesia, terasing as an adjective means terpisah dari yang lain or being separated from the others. The second one is faithful translation. The datum applied faithful translation as the method. The word inside as the source text is translated into dalam diri in the target text. According to Oxford Dictionary, inside as a preposition means on or to the inner part of something. And the phrase dalam diri comes from dalam and diri. According to Kamus Besar Bahasa Indonesia, dalam as an adjective is defined as jauh ke bawah dari permukaan or way down from the surface, while diri as a noun means badan or body. The third one is communicative translation. The phrase couldn't keep it in is translated into tak sanggup lagi. Although both texts have different sentences, they have the same idea in explaining someone that feels enough of whatever she or he has to keep.
Okay, Miss Fanny, yes, I think you should, okay, go to the conclusion. Thank you.
Okay. The aim of the study is to analyze methods applied in translating the selected lines of the poem Bayangan and song Let It Go. Based on the data findings, the most frequent method applied by the translator is free translation, followed by faithful translation, communicative translation, and adaptation translation. The researchers conclude that in translating literary works, the appropriate methods should be paid attention in order to maintain the original meaning, so that the readers from both language backgrounds reach the same comprehension of the text. I think that's all from us. Thank you for your attention and good morning.
Okay, thank you for the nice presentation, Ms. Tarani and Ms. Fanny. I would like to remind the other presenters once again that you only given 10 minutes for the presentation. After that, it will be followed by the discussion or question and answer session. Thank you for the attention of that. And now let's move on to the second group of presenters today. That is Ms. Betty Mawani and Ms. Betari Irmagasani. Ms. Fanny, thank you for closing the sharing. The sharing was that document. And now, Ms. Betty, are you ready for the presentation?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Can you guys see my screen?
Okay. Very clearly.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Thank you very much, Bu Yusnita.
Yes, you may start now.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm here. My name is Betty Mawarni with my partner, Betari Irmagasani. Are you there? Yeah, okay, sure. Here we're going to talk about challenges in diplomatic interpreting. I'm here as a professional, so as a translator and interpreter, especially a member of HPI and IPPI. So because it's been a while, I haven't got into this academic situation, so I'm really expecting critics and feedbacks from everyone here. Okay, without further ado, I'm going just to start. Okay, right. So the role of interpreter has been shifted. So it's just not an invisible language transmitter like we've seen in conference interpreting, but also to an essential partner in a cross-cultural conversation or a constructor to the interaction. So thus interpreting rather than a set of mental structures and process, it is a conceptualized mediated interaction between two or more communicating parties with different linguistic and cultural backgrounds, discussing issues for communicative purpose, role, trust, status, and power. And in this case, I'm using relay interpreting as an example, which is the practice of interpreting from one language to another through a third language. And the setting that becomes the object of my research is diplomatic settings. It is a very specialized field that requires the same skills with the general interpreter, but plus technical, cultural, ethical, and diplomatic knowledge and abilities, plus self-confidence, courage, stress control by refraining from personal emotions and opinions. I will explain it further in the discussion later. And the characteristics of diplomatic language is the speech act theory, persuasion and rhetoric, diplomatic jargon, specific terminologies, ambiguity, and diplomatic signaling. This makes diplomatic language differs significantly from other types of purpose of communicative language. That's why that makes interpreting in diplomatic settings a distinctive field of interpreting. Okay, so the methods here is the qualitative, using observational approach to the actual activity, using the field work, specifically case study on the relay interpreting in the third Indonesia, Russia high-level interagency consultation on international information security. Okay, so means of interpreting here is the ways of seeing, interpreting in language cognition by what is it, considering the language cognition and culture as well as interaction. So the challenges, the first one is what is it called as verbal transfer. The challenges such as the high registers, unusual accents, implicit messages, understatements. You usually find it a lot in diplomatic setting, and non-verbal signs. High registers because it is between the high level person or representatives of a country. So the language uses usually using high registers. And the unusual accents, in this case, the accent is between the Russian accents and the Indonesian accents. Somehow this makes the comprehension of an utterance different from the native English speakers. The implicit messages, including the understatement in which the speakers, such as toning down what they actually mean, and nonverbal signs, of course, facial expression and such. And this next one is the challenge stems from the cognitive information processing. The interpreting in diplomatic settings usually takes quite a long time, especially in relay interpreting, where you use the pivot language, which means you have to triple the time for the communications. For example, in this case, it should be 2-hour meeting. It ended up by like seven-hour long meeting, which resulted in lengthy hours and led to fatigue. And the long consecutive, because there are a lot of information to be presented, it required high level of note-taking skill, because we cannot remember all of the things, the words or the messages that the speakers are saying. That's why it is important to have a note-taking skill to help us retain the memory. And multitasking, because interpreter not only have to listen, they have to process the messages, explicit and implicit, but they also have to reproduce the messages in the target language, target audience. And the next one is challenges. The challenges seen from the communicative activity. It involves the background knowledge of the interpreter regarding the situation or the topic or the issues they're talked by the parties. It includes diplomatic jargons. In this case, interpreter needs to understand between the difference of using why Russia refused to use refused to use cybersecurity and choose information security. This has to do with the knowledge of global developments in which cybersecurity is used mostly by American, and we all know how the positions between American and Russia. And we also have to know the terminologies used to use in the situations such as Five Eyes. Like normal people will just will consider Five Eyes like five eyes. But in this context, Five Eyes means like a consortium of several countries as allies in cyberspace, and why people use confidence building measures instead of capacity building. And it is a bit difficult because to know a lot of things about this, because the diplomacy itself is a closed milieu where information are not spread freely. So it's limited to just certain community. Okay, and the next one is the production and mediation. So here, instead of being invisible, in the diplomatic setting, usually interpreters are visible. So they have to present as a good public speaker. This is a great challenge, because there is a pressure of being seen in the meeting where like delegates of high level of countries representatives, but you have to be able to speak not as a translator, but just you have to speak as the speaker themselves, and an interpreter need to serve as a gatekeeper, meaning that you have to make the communication flow, but interpreters need to stay impartial as well, which is a complex situation. Okay, this is what I said as being visible. So interpreters are among the delegates. It's not in the booth like it usually occurs in the conference interpreting, but you are part of the delegates. You are part of the country's representatives. Okay. So I hope I don't exceed the time limit, but I'm just going to conclude the short discussion, because diplomatic interpreting is a very specialized field of interpreting studies. Those who work in diplomatic settings need to be aware of the challenges ranging from verbal to cognitive to cultural aspects of interpreting. And by understanding the diplomatic context and the challenges, we hope that through this presentation, it can help interpreters to prepare themselves with sufficient background knowledge and skills essential to achieve the communicative effect expected in the interpreting process. Okay, I think that's all from our team. So just some last words. So interpreting appear in the shadow of the mighty. They have been around forever, at least ever since different language and cultures have met. The discretion that goes with their job makes interpreters very inconspicuous people, but behind the cloak of professional neutrality, one can discover a cast of fascinating characters who dedicate themselves to their craft with the utmost passion. I think that's all. Thank you, Bu Yusnita. I give the screen back to you.
Okay, that was a very interesting presentation, Dr. Mawani, and don't worry, it's just about the time, 11:28, for you to stop the presentation. A very, efficient presentation. Thank you. Okay, now let's proceed to the third turn for the presentation in this room. I call Miss Nino Soliha. Are you there already, Miss Nino? Because previously, she was like, she said she wanted to change the laptop. Miss Nino? Bu Nino? Okay, it seems that Bu Nino is not here, is not around. So, okay, I think we can skip Bu Nino's turn. And now we move on. We proceed to the fourth session of the presentation in this breakout room today. It is by Miss Deta Maria Sri Darta. Miss Deta, are you there? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Are you ready for the presentation?
Yes, let me share my screen first.
Okay, yes. Yeah. Okay, clearly seen on the screen.
Okay. Wait. Okay. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Okay, you may start now for 10 minutes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for having me here to present one tiny part of actually my work with my professor back then. So let me introduce myself. My name is Deta, and currently I'm teaching in UKSW, Universitas Kristen Satya Wacana, but I am also a student in postgraduate UNS. So this one is one part of my dissertation. So the title is Translating Characters Straight, a case of Gadis Pantai and its English translation. Okay, so as we know that translation is a way for a non-English literary text to be acknowledged as a part of world literature. So this one is has been said by Damrosch in his book, saying that world literature consists of translated literary texts. So translating literary text, especially prose, needs to understand that it has some elements that build it up together. So one of the elements is character trait. And moreover, Catherine Bandel in her book said that the result of translated text translated works need to be a kind of reproduction that need to be close to the original work, that to maintain all the elements. So by saying that translating literary text is less risky is somehow is not true. And the translator is the first reader of the source text. And she or he had to, if she or he misinterpreted the character in the source text, most probably the translated version is shifted. But also when the translator make a kind of creativity, it make the translated version way from the far away from the original version. So too much deviation is called adaptation. It is no longer considered as translation. So the objective of this study is to scrutinize the traits of the main character, in this case, Gadis Pantai in the novel Gadis Pantai by Pramudya, and how those traits are translated into English by the translator, Willem Samuel or John McLean, with the title of The Girl from the Coast, using the help of one type of appraisal, that is affect. Okay, characterization is different. Yeah, the term of character is different to the other term of character. The first term of character refers to the persona of the story. And then the other term of character, especially in Bahasa Indonesia, we call character, yeah. Karakter means that the traits that are interpreted by the readers about the persona. While the characterization means how the persona are portrayed and given clues about so that the readers can understand. While affect comes from appraisal. Appraisal is a framework to analyze the use of language to evaluate. Affect is one part of appraisal which describes or evaluates feelings, both positively and negatively, direct and indirectly. Affect is divided into four: disinclination and inclination, and then insecurity is security, and then dissatisfaction, satisfaction, and unhappiness, happiness. So those are the example taken from Martin and Rose. So the relation between characterization and affect. Affect is used to interpret the character's feeling about someone or something. Words, phrases, clauses are taken from the novel are only those related to the character's feeling, both directly and indirectly. And then after analyzing the effects found, we make a kind of concluding remarks to the character's trait. By comparing the effects found in the source text to the one found in the target text, we can see how they are translated. These are some findings. So I focus only on the character of Gadis Pantai, one main character only. And it turned out that Pramudya made a kind of lifelike character by having I can find all the type of effects in her traits. Yeah. Okay. These are the percentage. Around 157 words or phrases, kinds of effects found. Okay. So Gadis Pantai feeling is dominated with the negative one. We can see here 28% insecurity, 17% is disinclination. So her feeling is dominated with the negative ones. The most prominent effect found is insecurity. It shows that she never feels at peace. She always worries about things. Furthermore, she lives in fear, since disinclination is the second dominated one. And however, it is, as I said before, that the characterization of Gadis Pantai is lifelike. All types of affects are found. So she also has the feeling of happiness and satisfaction too. So what about the English version of Gadis Pantai? So almost all affects found are translated successfully into English, into its English version. The translator finds his way to deliver the affect into English, although he has to add some explanation. For example, in the clause, ia tidak berani, full stop, it is the original version, the translator translated into she didn't have the nerve, and then adding here, adding to drink. Yeah. So the translator gives the context of the fear experienced by Gadis Pantai, fear to drink. Yeah. And then some affects are also not translated. So some affects are found to be deleted, like the sentence dia merasa asing. I couldn't find it in the translated version. And then also some shift found from one type of affect into the other. For example, from the fear change into insecurity. So Gadis Pantai jadi ketakutan, this one's fear. And then the translated version is the girl suddenly felt rushed in panic. This one is more on insecurity. So to conclude that, in Gadis Pantai, some affects, the translated version, some affects are deleted or shifted, making some traits change. But we are quite lucky that the traits of Gadis Pantai found so many, and not all words or sentences that represent the same kind of affect are deleted. So we still can find, for example, the example of one type of affect in other sentences. And then appraisal is found to help the translator to decide the unit of translation before she or he begins to translate the character straight, so that we will not delayed or maybe like change from appraisal into non-appraisal, for example. And then the deleted and shifted affect after being translated might result on the different traits that is being portrayed by the author. Yeah, because as Pendle said that all elements should be there in the translated version. So if the character, the traits of the character is not fully translated into the target text, meaning that the characteristic of the character is also shifted. So I can conclude that the translating literary text is as risky as translating other document. And I think that's all that I can share from my paper. Thank you for listening.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Deta. That's another interesting presentation today, combining appraisal of functional linguistics into the study of translation. And I hope success for your dissertation. It is a part of your dissertation, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the presenter and the participant in this room, now we come to the last presenter today in this in this room 4, Miss Nino Ahiro. I think she is already here. Miss Nino, can you hear my voice?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, right. Yes. Are you ready to present?
Yes, Nita, I'm sorry for getting difficulty in re-entering this room.
Okay, no, it's okay, no problem. Now you are here,
Yeah.
so you are sound and safe with us. Okay, now it's your time to present your paper. You have 10 minutes to present your presentation. Okay, please.
Yes.
Time is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much for the moderator. First of all, I would like to say sorry for not being able to use the conference background. And also for being late to come to this room. I would like to share my conceptual article on translation studies. Have you seen the screen?
Clearly,
Yes.
very clearly. Thank you.
Yes.
The title is Parallelism of Source Text with Target Text in News Translation. I said it as a part of conceptual article because this is an analysis of one of the aspects of translation studies, that is news translation, which is often considered as invisible translation for some people. I will start with this background. Some critics directed to news translation said that there are some aspects of news translation which make news translation is doubtful whether it can be characterized into translation or not. Some of the criticism is one, invisibility of news translation, and then the huge influence of editing, and then the difficulty in recognizing reconstruction process and language transfer, and also difficulty in tracing source text. About the invisibility, some critics say that the news translator itself does not feel that they are translator. In some institutional practice, that is true. Some translators even do not say that they are translating, and they do not want to be called as translator. They are usually called journalists. This is the one of the real phenomenon, that the invisibility of translation is there in news translation practice. And then the second one is editing. As we know that editing is very influential in the process of broadcasting translated news in this context is in Indonesian media. Editing is very influential. What come to you in newspaper page can be very different with the source text. The source text means the article, the news stories in the source language. In Indonesia, usually it is written in English. And again, the final version in the newspaper is very different with the source text. This is because of the effect of editing. And then the third one, I guess, difficulty in recognizing reconstruction process and language transfer. It is said by critics that in news translation, it is hard to know the process of reconstruction and also the language transfer. And also the last one, some news is usually taken from several source texts at a time. So sometimes a single news, translated news, is taken from many source texts, and it causes difficulty in tracing the source text itself, in terms that there are some information taken from source text A, some information is taken from source text B, and etc. That's what make some critics say that news translation is doubtful to be characterized as part of translation. The one who is doubt about the existence of news translations as part of translation usually propose other terms to describe the process of translating news stories. Some of them use the words transcreation, some of them use the words trans-editing, and also trans-adaptation. But a number of translation experts also says that news translation is a translation, and I personally agree that news translation is absolutely part of translation. I quote one of the opinion from one of translation scholars, that's Schaffner, in 2012. She said that trans-editing cannot be the replacement of news translation. If the term trans-editing is used to replace the term translation, it is likely that translation will continue to be understood in a narrow sense as a word-to-word transfer process. So, according to Schaffner, it is not appropriate to replace the terms news translation with trans-editing or trans-creation or trans-adaptation. The terms is just terms used to raise awareness of the complexity of the translation process. And then this is based on my preliminary research. This will be part of my dissertation project also. Until this time, I found a conceptual background that translation is a translation, regardless any weaknesses that is usually directed to it, as like this one. There is change made to the source tag, and the change is usually very what is it? Big change in the process of transferring source text into the target text. But these changes occur due to differences in linguistic system, and also it is also the result of consideration of the target reader. And I guess this case is also true for other kinds of translation, not only in news translation. Nah, to insist that news translation is part of translation, there can be many steps can be done to ensure that news translation is part of translation, to make others sure that it is absolutely part of translation. There are two things that I think can be proposed. The first one is we should think about the parallelism of source tag and target text. And also the second one is there should be a comprehensive approach in doing research on news translation. The first one is parallelism. The parallelism means that we can find the source tag and the target text which can correspond one to one. This I put it here. This is the background first. I will. Although most news translations do not use the one-to-one translation type, the corpora type used does not belong to the corpora type that does not have a source tag. For your information, mostly in Indonesian media, the translated news is usually taken from more than one source of news. Like when you read bbc.com, you will find that a single translated news tag is taken from 2 or 3 news wires at a time. For example, they use AFP, they use Associated Press, they use Reuters, and etc. This is commonly done, but it is also worthy to note that not all the Indonesian media practice that kind of process. I find that there are also media that is concerned with using one-to-one translation type. It means that a single translated text is taken from a source tag only, one source tag only.
Okay, I'm sorry, Buninu, 1 minute left, so maybe you can go to
Okay.
the conclusion. Yeah.
Yes. And for my conclusion is from the things that I have described earlier, it appears that news translation is part of translation and it can be studied properly because the source tag can be traced by researchers. Tracking can be carried out using data from informant, that is the translator or the journalist. From it, data on the source tag can be obtained, which can then be compared with the translated news in order to reveal various things that are usually the focus of translation studies. So we have the source tag. And the second one, there is a comprehensive approach in doing the research on translation. You can use several kind of approach like discourse and other more socially oriented approach in doing research in translation by considering about parallelism of source tag and target text and also using comprehensive approach in doing research. I guess it can make sure that news translation is part of translation. Okay, thank you very much for the time, dear moderator.
Thank you very much, Buninu, for the nice and interesting presentation. Again, it's a part of a presentation, I mean, the paper for dissertation. I wish you a very successful that one, yeah? Okay, yes. So that's the end of the presentations for this room 4 session. Now it comes to the question and answer session. So I would like to invite anyone in this breakout room 4 to give comment, feedback, or maybe ask question to the presenters. Okay, we only have 15 minutes for that one, so maybe 4 or maybe 3 questions are enough. Yes, you may raise your hand to let me know who want to ask question, or maybe you can type the question in the chat box. Okay. Yes? Anyone who would like to give comment or feedback or responses to the presentation, I mean to the presenters who just had their wonderful presentations today? I'm happy that I was assigned to work to be the moderator of this room this morning, because I think all the presenters have their remarkable presentation. Yes, anyone? Oh, okay. Well, we are waiting for the participant in this room. Oh yeah, Buninu. Oh, Buninu, you raised a question. Yes, okay. You are presenters, so you are one of the presenters in this room. So I think you will have a question to the other 3 or one of them, or yeah. Okay, time is yours. Okay.
Also, sorry. Are presenter allowed to give a question to other presenters?
I think so, because yeah, it is the idea of sharing. I mean, the idea of this having this is to share ideas. So I don't think. I mean, I think it's okay for you to have question to other presenters. Yes, please do.
Okay. Yes. I will ask Mbak Deta.
Okay.
I guess we are in the same team, but I'm your junior, I guess. I go with the professors you got for your project also. I want to ask you a question only, Mbak Deta. You said in your conclusion that doing translation in literary text and using the approach of appraisal, it can prove that it is risky. It is risky to translate literary text taken from the point of view of appraisal. Can you give the single example of the real example of the effect, if there is an effect of appraisal which is not conveyed properly in the target text?
What I said before, that it is in general, some, let me clarify things here. In general, some people who aim to translate literary text, they consider that because this is a literary text, it's a work of creativity. So the translator have to be creative too. And then the result is what we have in our bookstores. The translated version of some literary texts, they are a little bit shifted from the original one. The very common common example that I can see, it's especially when you watch movie. When you watch movie, some of the character traits are just shifted because maybe, for example, one the character says some of the taboo words or curse too much, and then in the subtitle, those cursing part are being filtered by the translator, and then we can see that that character is not whole like the character in the original version. That's what I said. It's not saying that using appraisal is risky, no, but saying that translating literary text is as risky as translating the other documents. So we can imagine if the author would like to convey a message about a certain character through its characteristics, and then those specific characteristics is being omitted or shifted, then probably the message is not really conveyed. But I think that this one is also in the contrary of what Prof. EC had already mentioned in the previously about manipulation.
Yes, right.
If it is about children literature, of course, the translator had the the aim or the burden to be the culture filter for the children. That's what I think. So.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I just want to know that you have proven that using the approach of appraisal, you can find that the shift are there in the translation of your subject of research.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bu Ninu, for the question to Ms. Deta. Yeah, I learned something from your question and answer. Okay, we still have time. Maybe one or two questions to the presenters today. Yes. Okay. While we are waiting for a question for other presenters, I would like to listening to your discussion, Ms. Deta and Bu Ninu, sorry. Well, I have this kind of question. Actually, this question is for all translators. Actually, when you you are a researcher in translating, or you are the translators yourself, how do you manage the validity of your translation? Or wait, what is the term in translation? The meaning equivalency. I mean, in your Miss Deta, for example, when you conduct the appraisal, the translating studies using appraisal framework, do you also contact the author? In this case, of course, Pram is not around, but do you contact the translator in managing how do they keep the meaning equivalency to the original text, and whether do you also ask them about whether they also aware of this kind of appraisal thing while they are translating? Sorry, a novice person
no,
in translation.
That's okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I have met John McLean, but it was prior my research, so I haven't asked him about whether he is aware of this kind of appraisal things. But as far as I know, that the research in translation is divided into two. This one, my part is the research on the product of translated version. Yeah, translation product, not the process. If we would like to do research on translation process, we may use that kind of approach. I mean, conducting the author, conducting the translator, asking how they are dealing with those difficult words or whether they are aware. But one thing I read from Basnet, Susan Basnet, is that some of the translators, they are not aware, especially literary text, translator of literary text, they are not aware of the elements of literature or some of linguistics aspect, because maybe for the common translator, I don't know, maybe Bu Ninu has
that's amazing. That's
I
amazing.
absolutely agree with that, Mbak Deta. For the translators, they do not usually aware with such linguistic aspect. Even in a very extreme form, like what I have said, some translators does not aware that they are translating. That is the case of the news translation.
Okay, that's amazing thing, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, still 4 minutes before I end up this breakout room session 4. Any question for from participants in this room? Yes, one more question. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Oh yes, please, Ms. Deta.
I would like to know the feeling of being interpreter. I asked Betty if I can.
Betty Mawarni. Yeah, right.
I would like to know how it feels to be an interpreter, because when I was in undergraduate, when I took interpreting class, it was like, oh my God, what should I do? So it's like, being a consecutive interpreting is a huge thing for me. Yeah. Can you share your feeling?
That's my question too. That's the same question goes to Betty, because I remember Betty was one of my students in my writing class, but I don't know whether I couldn't remember why she was also one of my students in interpreting class. Okay, please, Betty. We have only 3 minutes left.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Bu Yusnita and Mbak Deta. And I took the interpreting with Wisi back then.
Oh, right.
Yeah. She's really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wasn't I didn't plan to be an interpreter. I was driven into this situation where I have to be an interpreter. But once I got into this, it's just I can get enough of being interpreter. It's super fun. But also the difference between becoming translator and interpreter is that the pressure of being a translator. As a translator, we have time. We have all the resources to look for the terminologies, and if we encounter some phrases, idiomatic expression, we can just search, we can Google, we can look up into the dictionary. But when we are being interpreter, especially consecutive or in the situation like diplomatic settings, we don't have that time and the resources as well. We just depend on our knowledge and skills to have to deliver the messages right there at that time. So I think the challenge, the greatest challenge is in the pressure when you have to render the message correctly, accurately, but also quickly. Yeah, in this situation, in a different kind of context.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
One last question from me, I think, because we ran out of time, but because I spot one of the participants in this room is undergrad students, yours junior, Betty. So maybe do you have any, was it like, what is it called? Suggestion for them, because you are from education studies, right? The education study program, right? So
I was from literature.
Oh, sorry, from literature.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, but I took many classes with education students.
Yeah,
like
okay.
Batari.
Yeah. So, what is your suggestion to your junior undergrad who are joining this breakout room for? If they have what's it the idea to be interpreter, what should they do after, say, for example, graduate from their S1 degree?
Yeah, the skills, as of course the speaking skills. That's the utmost. Not only that, you have to be able to speak English and Indonesian, but you have to be fluent in both languages to avoid any um, mistakes in grammar and such. It's not a big deal, but it will be a disruption for your audience. Yeah, but people will be distracted by your grammar, so they don't focus on your messages. So the other thing that we need to practice a lot is the reading part, the knowledge background, the research on the knowledge background. So it is really important to, when you are assigned as an interpreter, make sure that you are prepared at least like 2 weeks before to read all the materials. You can ask the comedy, you can search, or you can do anything that you can to get any information related to the context that you're going to be in. That's going to help you with the terminologies, with the information, the issues they're going to talk about, and that's going to make you better prepared for interpreting. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Betty. Actually, I
Sure.
have more to ask, but we run out of time. It's already
Sure.
12:06, so I don't want to hold you in this what's that breakout room, because after this you will have your lunch break. Don't leave the room, but don't leave the Zoom. I mean, but leave this room, breakout room 4, to go to the main room, because there is another plenary session at the end of this session. I mean, this conference today by Dr. Farjis from India. I hope you are willing to join the last plenary session today. And thank you very much for the presenters. You have done a great presentation. Thank you so much also for the participants in this group. Let's give applause to
Bu
the
Yusnita for
presentation and
moderating
for
us.
all of us. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. See you in the main room.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
Thank you. See you, ma'am.
Yeah. Bapak Ibu yang masih di sini, silahkan bisa kembali ke main room. We will have the last plenary session for today at 1, pukul 1. Don't leave the Zoom, but leave the breakout rooms. Okay, thank you.
Depan